everybody, and welcome to this evening's broadcast of It Matters Radio. This is Monica Brinkman, and I'm your host for this evening. And with me, of course, is the wonderful, wonderful, talented Mr. Kenneth Ween. And Ken always brings us wonderful guests, and I get excited every time we do a show. So, Ken, what's
Well,
going on?
before I get to our great guest this evening, who's a dear friend of ours, of course, and of the shows, I want to tell all our listeners that we have just passed a couple of days ago your birthday.
Oh yeah.
And I know everybody will join me in wishing you the best of all possible years ahead
Oh, thank you.
and many more.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Happy birthday.
well, thank you so much, Matthew. I actually heard some really exciting news, and I hope it's all going to come out this way because I don't know if you know it, but the numerologist that was on before. Okay, it's terrible. I can't remember her name, but Vicky, wasn't it? Yeah, yeah. She wrote me and she said, Monica, this is a beginning of a 1 year for you. It's going to be new beginnings. So, Ken, I think you know what that means. So I hope it's going to happen.
I sure hope all kinds of good things are going to happen. You
Yeah.
deserve them. You know, folks, if you don't know, Monica Brinkman does so much for so many people.
Oh,
She, just through the It Matters radio programs, which she does, not just this one, but a music one, and then all of the Euro indie music ones that she does. She's helping so many people just that, but also in her personal life. If there is something to the word karma, and if somebody will get in life what they truly deserve, then Monica, you have only blessings ahead.
well, thank you so much. How sweet. Okay, I'm going to blush. Thank you both, and thank you, Matthew, also.
And
Okay.
now it's my great pleasure to reintroduce our listeners to Matt Peters. Matthew Peters has written two very fine novels, one of which just came out. It is published by Melange, and it just came out this month, and it's called The Brothers Keepers, a Nicholas Branson novel, and it's available in Kindle and in printed version and in Nook, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be an audio version too, because if ever there was a very good book for listening to, especially when you're in the car, this is it, because I read it, and I give it 4 paws up, Punky.
Yeah.
4 paws up.
Thank you.
So, Matthew, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got to writing this novel and what it's about?
Well, I actually started off with an interest in early Christianity and also with a particular interest in the Jesuits. And I started playing with some what if questions sort of right off the bat. And one of the questions I asked myself initially was, what if a document that was found that was actually written by Jesus? And, what would that mean and what would the implications be? That, of course, changed as the research went on. But what it ultimately provided me with was a story that has roots in history, actually. The story starts off with the murder of a senator in a church confessional. And when a strange religious document is found in his possession, he's asked to join the FBI investigation by his best friend. And what starts off as a murder investigation soon sort of turns into a search across the world for an 800-year-old treasure. And of course, it's all wrapped up in a web of political and ecclesiastical intrigue. So that's essentially the plot of the book.
Mm-hmm. Now, the person who is asked to take part in this investigation is a
Yes.
Jesuit whose name is Nicholas Branson.
That's correct.
And he is obviously, by the very fact of the subtitle, is the hero of the book.
Yes.
And his quest for this information takes him pretty much around the world.
It does.
Because the key element here, in terms of ecclesiastical history, is that the document is connected to the Cathars, which is a heretical, according to the Catholic Church, sect.
Yes.
That predominantly was found in the south of France, north of Spain, the Pyrenees region, and was the first target, actually, of the Inquisition.
Yes.
And the Cathars are a very interesting religious group, and I think raises some fascinating topics just in terms of things, folks, beyond the novel you might want to start thinking about, such as the nature of good and evil.
Yes.
Because they believe, what about the world? Something very unusual.
Yes, actually, they believe that the world itself was created by Satan, and that all sort of material matter is intrinsically evil. That there's a world of darkness and a world of light, and Satan actually, exists in the world of darkness and is actually the creator of this world.
Mm-hmm. And that, of course, that would mean that Jesus was teaching about escaping from that darkness by letting go of worldly possessions.
Exactly.
Letting go of material things and concerns.
Absolutely.
And that, of course, gets us some interesting connections, for example, to Buddhism.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want to ruin the book for you by giving any spoilers, but I am going to say that these themes of good and evil and who's good and who's evil play powerfully through this book. So if you like to think about those kinds of religious issues, this is a book for you.
Well, it's interesting, too, that you mentioned Buddhism, because the Cathars actually had a belief in reincarnation. And, of course, in Hindu belief, it's very strong. What they actually believed in was that salvation came from freeing the soul that was trapped in matter, that is the body.
Right.
And they believe that the Catholic Church, which is this is one of the reasons why they were set upon by the Catholic Church, had become a very worldly, materialistic institution. And they, the Cathars rejected sort of all materialism. And they actually sometimes refer to the church as the Church of Satan. They rejected the sacraments of the church. And they, in fact, interestingly, didn't believe in venerating the cross, which also got them into a whole heap of trouble, because they believed that Jesus was a spirit and that you really couldn't crucify a spirit. So, therefore, the cross was simply an instrument of torture, and it had no business being venerated whatsoever.
An instrument of Satan.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
I have to ask you, Matt, have you ever been to the Vatican?
I have not.
Monica, have you?
No.
I have. And I have to tell you, I went to the Vatican some years ago with my wife, and we, toured through, saw the ceilings, things like that. We found our way into the treasure room. And let me tell you, we're looking at stuff that comes from that. We're talking about a period in the basically the early 15th century, the 1400s, and we're looking at all this gold and silver and ornamented cloth and jewels that the church was amassing during that time. And I turned to my wife, and she and I are into these kind of ecclesiastical issues, and I said, how can an instrument or an institution of God and of a Christ, a being like Jesus was supposed to be, have found its way so darkly into the materialistic world? And of course, obviously, the Catholics were asking that question at the moment. By the way, there is an end to that little story, because at the end of this wandering through these treasures, these just incredible treasures, and we were only seeing what the public's allowed to see, we come to the gift shop. And guess what, folks? You get to spend your money. And I had to buy, of course, our son a present from the Vatican. And I said, what is the silliest, most obviously inappropriate thing I can buy for him here? There were rosaries and there were crucifixes and there were bleeding hearts. And I found a snow globe, a Jesus snow globe.
A Jesus snow globe.
Jesus snow globe. That'll do it. Yeah.
And there's quite a bit of heavy duty terrain and weather in the Brothers Keepers, isn't there, Matt?
There is. Yeah. Actually, they go across the world at various locations. Starting off in southern France. In the Pyrenees, the remains of Mont Sager, which is where the Cathars actually made their last stand in the middle part of the 13th century. They were the target of the only crusade launched against Christians, started by Pope Innocent III in 1209. It lasted 20 years, killed thousands of people. And they made their last stand on Mount Sager. And they were told that if they would renounce their beliefs, that they would be, let go. But they did not. And legend has it that they actually went singing into the fire that was built for them.
How horrible!
Mm.
Who was persecuting them?
The Catholic Church.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure I was thinking right. Yeah.
But they didn't all, according to the myth, they didn't all perish in the fire, did they, man? That's what the book is based on.
Right. Yeah. That supposedly, was their last stand, and sort of officially they met their demise. But there were Cathars that existed actually much after that. And the argument of the book is, of course, that the Branson's assistant, who joins him on his quest, is in fact a modern day Cathar. So the book argues that there are Cathars in the present day, and actually, from my research, there actually are still in southern France.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah, if they still had some.
I think if you look at the people like myself, who tend to be more spiritual than religious, that I think a lot of us, really, if the Cathars were to come forward today, a lot of us would say, yeah, that's pretty close to what I believe.
Yes, indeed. And in fact, they claim to be sort of the preservers of the true message of Jesus, which, of course, got very much changed over the centuries by the church and by people like Paul early on. So they actually claim to be the defenders of the original message of Jesus.
And of course, one of the people who has at times been identified as being a Catholic, I don't know that it's necessarily true, especially given his materialistic wantings, but was Thomas Jefferson. Said that the only thing in the Bible that we should really take seriously are the words attributed to Jesus. And he created his own kind of censored Bible, which he cut all of those out.
Yeah, and he did. Yes.
The other one who's famous for doing that is Leo Tolstoy. And Tolstoy did something even more amazing with it. If you read Tolstoy's book, his reworking, he took them and rearranged them so they connected to the Lord's Prayer. So each chapter is like a line from the Lord's Prayer and in its meanings. And it's really incredibly powerful to read, because when you strip away the church militant and the church triumphant, and you just look at the church spiritual, as those men did and as the Cathars did, it's a very different feel to it.
It's very, very different. Yes, it is different. And that's one of the issues that the book also raises, is sort of the relationship between politics and religion. It tackles those non-controversial issues.
Often folks, you read good fiction, and it's nice, it's like, and you go on. But Matt, you've written a book that really addresses serious issues that people need to think about.
Well, I tried. I have a degree in political science, and so I've always been interested in political issues. And I was actually raised or exposed to Catholicism as a young person growing up. So I've sort of always been interested in those types of issues, particularly how they might relate to one another or not. So this is one of the issues that comes up in the book, is the whole relationship between church and state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, the treasure. Do you want to say something about the treasure?
Yeah, I won't say too much about it, but on the Cathars made their last stand on Mount Sagar in 1244, and the night before they were killed by the forces of the church, 4 Cathars supposedly escaped down the sheer face of the mountain, which is really, really steep, and carrying what was alleged to be a treasure of some sort. And nobody knows, in terms of historians and all the research that has been done, exactly what this so-called treasure was. But it was secreted off on the night prior to the morning in which they were killed. So there's been, of course, great speculation over the centuries as to the nature of this treasure, and this is what ultimately ends up being connected to the murder of the senator that starts off the book.
Yeah. However, folks, we're going to give you an obvious hint here. It's kind of obvious. If you've listened to the preceding discussion of what the Cathars believe, you know that this treasure is not going to be gold or diamonds.
That's what I was just going to say.
Yes.
I doubt very
Yes.
much if it was going to be,
Yes.
something that was a huge monetary.
Yeah.
Lay up not your treasures on earth with moth and dust corrode.
Absolutely, and that's really what most people who have done a lot of research on the Cathar treasure have said, is that it's really not likely to be anything worth a whole lot of gold, or gold in and of itself.
Except, folks, if you think about it, let's stop for a minute and say it was something that really connected to the Spirit of God, and something that really exposed meaning, real meaning in life. Mm-hmm. Who would not want it to be known? Who would not want it out there? And boy, that's a bunch of people.
A bunch of people. That's right. And yes, so it is very valuable in that sense. It's just not a treasure that we would think of like a chest of gold, precious jewels or something like that. But it's infinitely valuable.
Mm-hmm. Infinitely.
I think most of the things that are valuable in life aren't in monetary values anyway.
Very true. Yeah, I agree.
I think this perception.
What I said at the beginning of the show about Monica.
Well, this perception that success is being rich and famous and that, and it's so full of garbage, to tell you the truth. Success is doing what your passion and love in life is, no matter what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You're successful for you, not to show the whole world that, oh, I'm this great person. I think doing loving gestures makes you successful in life. Being kind to each other makes you successful in life. So what we've been brought up to think is successful, to me, is just the opposite of it.
Well, I think it's very interesting because we see that some people are much more caring than others. And one of the things about Matt, Monica, I think you've read his other book. I know
Oh
I
yeah,
have.
it's wonderful. Matt's one of the best writers.
Matt, your other book is
Conversations Among Ruins.
Okay.
Conversations Among Ruins. And that, of course, is much more about mental health,
It is.
but it's got a theme of caring in it.
Right.
It is. It very much is. Yeah, it's actually the main character is a struggling professor who's dual diagnosed, meaning he has both a mood disorder and a chemical dependency. And it's sort of his struggles and his journey, if you will, through life at a certain time.
Well, Ken,
And sort of
why don't we take a pause right now and look at the trailer
for The Brothers Keepers.
Yeah, and then when you can
Sounds
come
great.
back maybe and talk about the other book, and
Okay.
I can't wait.
Do
So
that.
we'll see you right after this. Enjoy.
Folks, if you haven't already figured it out, this is four paws up from Punky, who can't get 5 stars, but the book itself is a 5-star book, and everybody who's reviewed it so far on Amazon thinks that way, and I think that way.
Oh, I have to get it. I just have
The
to.
Brothers Keepers, a Nicholas Branson novel, and it's by our guest this evening, Matthew Peters. And Matt, I believe you also have your own website that people can go and look and learn more.
I do. It's called MatthewPetersBooks.com.
Okay, and you learn a little bit more about this fine gentleman and good writer and wonderful friend. See if we can get him to blush too. Okay, Matt, you've got these 2 books out. Are you working on another?
I am actually working on the next book, the next Branson novel, which will come out in September of 2017, and I'm working on the 3rd book as well, which hopefully will come out the following year. And I just finished co-authoring a love story, which hopefully we're with a British author, L.T. Kelly, that we're trying to find representation for at this point in time. So lots of stuff going on, really.
Yeah, it is exciting.
Well, these books are ready for publishing. Of course, you're going to send me copies so I can have you back on the show, right? Because
I'd love to. I'd love to.
So
Very
how
nice.
did you happen to get into writing books? What's the inspiration for you?
I growing up, I started reading early, and I actually started writing quite a young age. Except I never gave fiction a shot until about 10 years ago. Because I went through graduate school to get degrees, and I taught for a while in the field of political science, and history and sociology and various other fields. And so, I was drawn to fiction about a decade ago. I started to read some fiction almost for like one of the first times in my life, actually. And I just got fascinated by the stories and the characters and just the ideas that were presented by some of the great writers. And it just sort of grabbed hold of me and just didn't let me go. And ever since then, I've been pretty much writing or researching, as the case may be.
So
Yeah.
I,
Takes a
I
lot
think
of research, doesn't it?
that fascinates
Does.
me a lot about your, well, let's talk about conversation on the ruins first. That's such an inward journey.
It is.
Okay. And as I read it, I kind of almost felt like, oh, I don't know, maybe an influence from Conrad, somebody like that, that you were taking and trying to reflect in his perception of the outside world, what was going on in the inside and the interplay.
Yes, it's very true. I sort of tried to map the internal terrain a little bit, almost as you would the external. And actually, the title is inspired by a Sylvia Plath poem, "Conversations Among the Ruins," and so there's elements of that as well, and sort of an attempt to sort of be lyrical. It's in certain places, and just sort of describe the struggles of a person that's actually suffering from both. Like I said, like a mood disorder and alcoholism in his case, in the character's case. So,
and then playing it off against a love interest who has similar
yes,
issues, of course.
and playing it off exactly a love interest that has similar issues, and how that's dealt with. In fact, that's sort of like the idea for the title, is because they're like, they are essentially ruins of people, and they're trying to
Yeah.
try to communicate among between them, and it's like talking amongst almost the dead in a way. So.
And of course, like all good ruins that are worth studying, these are not ant people. They're significant people. They're people who, if they had not given way into their diagnosed conditions,
Yes.
have been of significance. And that, of course, brings a great sense of the pathos. And that's what I find coming over into the Brothers Keepers, is that sense of pathos. Even though very different, this is much more, folks, if you like a Dan Brown kind of novel with a lot of action, that's what this novel is on the surface. It's got a lot of great action and good description of that action, and explosions and assassination, all the good things you really enjoy. But there's also the sense of the pathos of it, because the Cathars are so beautiful, and the setting is so beautiful, and the resolution is so beautiful, but incredibly sad. Beyond that, we won't go there, folks. You got to read this book. You got to get to the end of it, because the way it resolves, really, you don't often feel like crying at the end of an action movie or an action book. But this one's different. You really do feel that sense of almost a sadness at the resolution. And as I read it, and this may seem strange to you, as I read it, Matt, the author that came to my mind is another one of my favorite authors of all time, Jack London.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. I love Jack London myself very much. Yeah. Oh, that's very interesting.
Nice compliment, yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I've only compared you to Joseph Conrad. And,
Hey, it's not a bad night, I'll tell you. Oh, if only I could be worthy.
You're too humble. No, this sounds wonderful. I have to get a copy of it, so.
Mhm.
And I hope other people listening will do that also.
Yes, folks, get it in print, get it in Kindle, get it in Nook, and I'm sure, as I said earlier, I'm sure at some point it's going to be an Audible, because this is that's one of the things about this book, and about your writing in general, Matt. I always say people should read aloud. I think the worst thing that is done is telling kids when they're little, I don't want to see your lips move when you're reading. No. Words have sound, and the sound is important. And I, of course, always tell people when they want to hint about writing, read your stuff aloud. Listen to it.
Yeah, you tell people that many times. Yeah.
And in fact, actually, both of these books, as they were being written, were read out loud. I mean,
and Audible, I think I think that when it comes out in Audible kind of thing, folks, you're going to enjoy it even a second time. If you've read it, and you should read it, then you're going to want to listen to it too, because the sound, the language is really nicely put together, man.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, how much poetry do you read?
I read my share. I have a penchant for the Romantics in particular. And at one time I was very, very influenced by Wordsworth in particular, and sort of saved my life actually at a crucial time in my journey. And so, I believe in the power of words, and certainly I think, poetry is an encapsulation of so much depth. It's almost like I think of it in terms of like alcoholic drinks. Like I think poetry is a shot of liquor, and sort of like a novel is, like a mixed drink, and or a short story rather is a mixed drink, and a novel is sort of like a glass of wine or a beer. And being the fact that poetry is so concentrated, I think, in its word usage and so forth, and its meaning has to be so compact, that that's the way I've always kind of thought of it. So I do enjoy poetry very much, and I try to read quite a bit of it, as much as I can, because I think it's enormously important to read as a writer, as a novelist.
Yes, and I think reading poetry is often better than reading prose when you're writing novels, because it makes you aspire to that compact writing, and it makes you aspire to that language that flows. And most importantly, I think it gets you to think about the meaning behind what you're doing. So let me ask you, Matt, you're writing about religion in The Brothers Keepers. And obviously, religion is just fraught with symbols. We've already, for example, mentioned the cross, and the sacraments, and that they were rejected by the Catholics. But now, what are some of the symbols that you use in The Brothers Keepers that you feel are important to the book, to the thinking, to what's in your heart? What are the symbols for you?
Well, I think one of the biggest symbol, I'd say, is the use of the dove, which, interestingly enough, of course, has a has a real tie with Christianity in terms of, the dove coming down when Jesus is baptized by John in the form of the Holy Spirit. And so, you have that sort of connection right off the bat. But then the Cathars is actually a large role or a symbol for the Cathars. And sort of, you see I think, one of the things the world needs most of all, of course, in this time, in this day and age, is, peace and understanding. And the dove has always been a symbol of that. And I think that, the message of the Cathars and their rejection of, sort of worldly matter and materialism sort of, speaks well to a direction in which, we might move if we're serious about sort of, fixing a lot of the things that are gone wrong in our society.
Well,
So,
I see a lot of people thinking that way right now. I mean, there's so many that are trying to get off grid, but this seems to be a huge, huge, huge problem for the establishments
Oh
throughout
yeah.
the world because
Yeah.
then they're going to lose control of people. So, I mean, they're even going as far as to a lot of states are making it almost impossible for people to go off grid anymore.
Well, Monica, isn't that in a sense, if we talk about Christianity and Jesus and the message of Christianity in its early days, what it represented, it was just that authorities versus let's go off the grid. The Essenes, of whom
Yes.
Jesus was a member, believed in a more communal, less materialistic, spiritual thing. And one of the things that struck me is I almost kept waiting. I was reading the Brothers Keepers. Was somebody going to shoot a dove out of the sky? I mean, it just seemed to
Oh.
be that the forces
Mm.
against the possibilities,
mm-hmm.
against the sense of possibilities. And that, by the way, is why I said liken you to Jack London. I always think of Jack London when I read Jack London. I think he was an author who, in the cruelest of worlds, could see the possibilities.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's so important that we have authors such as you, Matthew, who aren't afraid to write something that's actually going to make people think and open their eyes a bit and their minds.
While they're having a heck of a good read, Monica. While they're having a heck of a good read.
I well, no, just I have to say this, and I don't want to offend anybody because I think religion's a very personal thing to each
Oh,
individual.
I agree. I agree.
But um, people follow the word of Jesus. This is what they say. They say he's God. And if you listen to what he says, it has nothing to do with what's going on in the world. And a lot of the things that these people who say they follow him um, do every single day of their lives.
Well, they do. Come on. Look, I heard Jesus myself say, feed the hungry, clothe the poor, but
Yes.
make sure that they have citizenship papers first. Don't you
No.
remember?
And we know who you're talking about, Ken. But that's what I'm saying. It's gotten to be ridiculous. But and
Yeah.
I think people,
It
and
really
please
has.
people don't get offended because this is my own opinion, but they're using your love of Jesus and your religion against you to control you, and it's got to stop. You know,
Folks, as you can see, just by how we've gotten Monica, who hasn't read the book yet,
no,
already thinking and talking about these things.
you
This
got
is a book you want to read. And Matt, was that your intention to get people thinking not just about a good story, but about meaning?
Oh, it really was. I mean, they say that, two things you should never discuss in polite company are religion and politics. So, of course, my inclination was to write a book on religion and politics.
That's what
Um, because hopefully, I think that there are things that people, all of us need to think of very seriously. at the same time, we're being entertained, which thank you, Ken, for saying that. I think, the intention was to provide an entertaining story, but also to really reflect, on where we're at and,
Yes.
how we got there. And, I think that the book does force you to sort of question, a lot of basic assumptions that you make without really thinking about it twice.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it does get you to think, and that good fiction should do that, folks.
Yes, it should.
Fiction shouldn't just feed you a story so you can say, "Oh yeah, hey, wasn't that exciting? Bang, bang, bang! Oh, that's good. Oh, isn't it amazing?" It should make
Yeah,
you
that's
thinking about what life is and what meaning is, and so I do want to recommend. I'm going to recommend two books to you tonight. They both happen to be written by Matthew Peters, our guest today. The first is the one that's just come out. It's called The Brothers Keepers, a Nicholas Branson novel. And the other one is Conversation Among the Ruins. And they are both good reads and books that will going to have you thinking even after you find out who done it, or have you thinking about things that go beyond that, and that makes them serious literary fiction.
Yeah,
And
I have a question to ask you, Ken. When you read the book, were you like sorry when it ended? You wanted it to keep going?
no, I wasn't. No, I wasn't. I'm never sorry when a book ends. I'm not one of those readers. I
Ah,
love it when books end, but I particularly love it when I know that the author is young and is going to write more. See, I'd
okay.
rather have the idea that, okay, I didn't know that when I finished The Brothers Keepers, I did not know that there was going to be another Nicholas Branson book.
Ah, well, now you're
But I
excited.
did know there was going to be another Matt Peters book.
Yeah.
And so, no, I wasn't sorry. I'm never sorry when books end. I love books to end.
Oh, I wish I could be like that because it's like I rush to get to the end, but then it's like, oh, that was so good, you know.
now it's
I,
over.
the books
And
that
now I
hold my
can't. Yeah, I can't.
interest,
I'll
the
have to
books
read.
that hold my interest, I rush through. Um, the books that don't hold my interest, obviously, I slog through, or I maybe don't even finish. And it's funny because I'll tell you something. It happens that my wife and they were redoing the parking lot in our condominium complex when I was reading Matt's book. So I was reading it on a computer, not my nice big desktop computer, but a little laptop computer. My
Right.
eyes are going, I'm getting older. And so I'm reading this, and we're staying at a hotel. That's why I was reading. And so I'm peering like this, reading it, and trying to read, and I couldn't stop reading it.
Yeah.
And I would get so tired from trying to read it that I'd have to take a break. I'd go out into the corridor. I'd walk up and down the corridor of the motel, come back in, sit down, and read the next chapter because I really wanted. He held my attention, and
Yeah.
I wanted to get it. And I think that's really how I measure how willing I am to be uncomfortable to read a book is. I measure how much I like it. And I got to tell you, Matt, that was an uncomfortable situation.
Well, thank you very much.
But what a great, excuse me, what a great compliment.
Indeed. Absolutely. Yes.
It is.
Yes.
So I hope, Matt, you weren't as uncomfortable writing it. So tell us a little bit about how you go about writing a book.
Okay. Well, I engage in a tremendous amount of research beforehand. And typically what I'll do is I'll spend at least a year, often more, researching. And that's what I did with the Brothers Keepers. That's what I've done with the next book in the series, and that's what I'll do with the third book. I read a tremendous 95% of what I read is nonfiction for books like this. But I also do engage in reading some novels by particular people that actually there's a former Jesuit named Malachi Martin. He passed away in 2000 or so, but he was a real Vatican insider. And in addition to writing, sort of texts on the Jesuits and various theological issues, he actually wrote a bunch of novels about the Vatican and whatnot, and they are spectacular. I can't recommend them highly enough. So a lot of that has been a source of inspiration for me as well. And what I do is I have sort of an index card system, because I take notes on index cards as I go along. And then at the end of the day, I break them up into categories and create these are my index cards for the next book so far, or the third book rather. And then I plot it out on like butcher paper, big piece of butcher paper I put on the wall, and sort of draw out the plot and map it all out. So it's really a lot of research, a lot of mapping, and then also a lot of breaking it down into scenes and trying to think through each scene and develop each scene as best as I can. So it's a long process. It really is, for me anyway. I know some people who write, more than one book a year.
Yeah, I can't do that. I'm lucky if I get one done in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, same here. I just can't do it.
I write at least 4 or 5 books a year, and that might turn out to be 2 pages worth when I get finished, because
Right.
so much of it ends up in here.
I totally understand that.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
I know.
Yes,
I right now I'm working on a project where I'm co-writing a gentleman's memoirs. He's from South Sudan. He's one of the lost boys.
Wow. Nice.
And so he comes over and we sit here and work on a chapter. And the other day, I printed out the 4th version of the chapter that we had worked on that morning. And he looked at me and he said, Ken, you use so much paper. And I said, I know, but it's the process I go through. And he looked at it and he says, but this isn't the last one. He said, of course, I'm going to send you a revised version when you go home today. It'll be a revised version in your email. You know that.
Yeah. I think a lot of people who read don't quite understand how much an author goes through to
It's true.
to get his story written. And I want to encourage people, if you find an author such as Matthew, whose book you thoroughly enjoyed and loved, write a review first of all.
Yes.
That will
Yes.
really, really help. Take the time to go to their sites, like whether it be on Amazon or any of the others.
Amazon, any place where you can
Right,
publish.
and write a review for them. It means so much
Oh,
because
it means the world.
it
And
does.
to tell other people.
Exactly.
And folks, please, I know it's very tempting to give people a copy of the book, but it's much nicer if you say to them, why don't you buy your own copy? Because while we do adhere to the value that the art is more important than the material, and the 3 of us are to some degree Cathars, the royalty checks do help. They it's nice every now and then to be able to say, well, I can go out and have a hot dog today for lunch.
Right.
Pretty bought my book. So tell people to buy the book.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
That's
some
right.
some of the best authors aren't making, hundreds and thousands of dollars. So
And Matt, anything else they can do to help?
Well, I was going to say, actually, when it comes to reviews, especially on Amazon, even short reviews are fine too. They don't have to be these long, detailed, sort of literary analysis of plot and character. They can just be, really short and quick. And I know Amazon takes reviews seriously in terms of the number of reviews that a certain book has. And so,
Right.
it's often It's just often more in terms of sheer number of reviews than, the length of each review. So even a sentence or
Right.
two is
And
perfectly fine.
besides that, there's sometimes I'll read a review and I'm going, well, they just gave the whole story away.
Yeah, that's the other thing, right?
Gosh, they
Yeah.
explained all the characters. Yeah,
Because we've avoided, folks, we've avoided giving you spoilers here.
right.
We have.
I want you to read Matt's books.
Yeah, yeah. And heck, give it as a gift,
Yeah,
Also.
yeah. You buy more than one copy, folks. You can read your copy, say, "Wow, I love this book." Go out and buy another copy and give it to your friend or your family member who you know is going to enjoy it. So
That's right.
tonight we have been talking with Matthew Peters. Matt Peters. He is the author of The Brothers Keepers, a Nicholas Branson novel, which is available on Amazon in both print and Kindle format and on Nook. And I'm predicting in the near future, it will probably also be on audio. And folks, it is a book you really do want to read.
Yes.
It's a great read. It's beautifully written. It's well researched. It's going to make you think while you're enjoying yourself.
Right.
And more can I say? Except, Matt, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Really, I enjoy coming on here so much, and both of you do so much for other people, and it's just amazing. And I want to thank you for that because it's really appreciated. Believe me.
Well, what a pleasure. I mean, to hear those words, because not everybody says that. It's nice. See, buy his book. Look. He's a good guy.
He is. So, Matt, keep us in mind for the next one. As soon as you got one for me to get it to me so I can read it. Because, folks, by the way, just a little thing. When we have people like Matt Peters on the show and we're talking about his book, we've read that book. We don't just have people send us a list of questions to talk about in their book. And that's one of the things that makes it Matters Radio different.
Absolutely. That's right.
We really care enough about it to do it right. So, Matt, thanks again for joining us.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you
Stay
so
well.
much.
You take care, Matt.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Monica, he's such a nice guy.
Yeah, I really enjoyed speaking with him, Ken.
We have a lot of great people come on the show, and I enjoy doing all our interviews. But some people just stand out, and Matt is really a super guy. And he's a fine, fine writer, folks. And one of the things about writing is that you have to be able to write under very strange conditions sometimes. And that brings up my next author I'd like to talk about, Punky the Diva Radio Cat. Now, Punky works very, very hard at writing a monthly newsletter. And if you're on her list and you've been good, she'll send it to you. Mm-hmm. It comes right out of her litter box, hairballs and all.
Yeah.
And she'll fill you in on some of the great new things that are happening, not only with us and the show, but also with our friends. It's also something you can send us your information if you want us to mention something that you're doing. Just send it to us, and Punky will kind of bat it around in the litter and see what sticks.
Yeah. Because we love to share news about our guests or people who might even be future guests.
Absolutely. So please remember to sign that for that. Now, she just sent one out for this month, and I know that next month she's already working on it because she's been talking to me about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things she's saying is the holidays are coming. Now, Punky loves holidays. And one of the reasons she loves holidays is because we do some special shows.
Yeah.
we do a special Halloween show. And of course, that's one of my favorites of the year.
Oh, me too. I love it. We have such fun with the Halloween shows.
Now, this year, Halloween's on a Monday, which means we'll be doing our show the day before Halloween. And
Halloween Eve.
yes,
All Hallows Eve. Yes.
and we would like you to contact us if you have music you'd like us to share. We're going to read some poetry, or if you have a video or a piece of flash fiction you'd like us to consider reading,
Yeah.
please send it to us, and we're going to try and put together the most entertaining Halloween show we can because we want to give you a treat.
Yeah. And people, your videos and your music, they don't have to all be spooky. They can be spooky. I love spooky, but they can also be funny or fun or anything that you think might be entertaining for us to share with others. So get your videos in and get your songs in.
And then coming up a little bit after that is Christmas. And
Oh yeah.
this year Christmas is actually on a Sunday.
Hmm.
But even though it is, we're going to do an It Matters Radio special broadcast. Monica and I are going to get Santa Claus to give us a little time off from wrapping presents. I don't think Punky is going to give us time off from wrapping presents. So,
Oh,
Monica, you're going to just have to keep some tuna right there on
oh
hand.
yeah, yeah. She wants
But,
more than tuna on those days. So she
but
does.
if folks we are going to do a Christmas show, and again, the same thing. If you have some Christmas music you'd like to share with us, if you have a Christmas poem, if you have a Christmas story that you'd like us to consider reading, if you have a video, we love videos. In
Hmm.
case you haven't figured that out, we love video. Please send us the stuff, and we're going to try again to give you a present of just a wonderful, wonderful Christmas. And we haven't decided, of course, 1 week after Christmas every year comes New Year's.
Hmm.
We haven't decided yet what we're going to do about New Year's besides drinking some bubbly.
That'll be something.
But hopefully,
I wanted to interrupt though, folks. Where you need to send,
oh yes, where to send it? Oh my, thank you, Monica.
Punky has her own email. And
Mhm.
I don't share it that much, only when we have special requests for her. And it's actually Punky, which is PUNKY at itmattersradio.com.
Uh-huh.
So that's where you're going to send those to Punky so she can take a look at everything and then she can let us know.
Mhm.
So again, it's Punky at itmattersradio.com.
Yes, and you do not have to email her anchovies
You
or
might,
anything like that.
well, she might tell you you do, but she's lying.
Yeah, she's lying. And then I just said a week after Christmas is New Year's Day, and I'm not sure what we're going to do besides drinking bubbly. Hopefully, by the time the show comes along, Monica and I will be through with our hangovers.
Yes.
Yes. And we'll be rearing to go.
That's right. And I hope you enjoyed this show, and I hope you'll support our guest and also share our show tonight and our guest with other people because that's what really matters.
Mhm.
And Ken, as always, it's been wonderful seeing you again. We have such fun. And good night, all. We'll see you
Good
next
night.
time. Bye bye.